Welcome back to another Post Media Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch of Post Media in Ottawa with Ken Warren of Post Media, and we're pleased to be joined by legendary play-by-play broadcaster Dean Brown. And guys, as we sit down today, the Senators have lost 12 of their last 13 games, but I think we all believe they've taken steps in the right direction. One of the areas that has improved, and let's start there, is the play of Matt Murray. And as they head out on a 5-game road trip that begins Saturday in Winnipeg, I think we've seen a resurgent Matt Murray, Dean.
Yeah, he had a little sit down and obviously talking with his goalie coach on a regular basis. And there was that game last week where the coach, when he was talking about it, made mention of the fact that they were holding him out. He's going to spend extra time in practice working on specific things. And it appears whatever specific things they worked on, it worked for him because he's certainly been a lot better, a lot more consistent. And they really need that. Obviously, the way that this team is playing and the youth and inexperience they have in this lineup and the skill level being what it is, they have no chance with average goaltending. They have a decent chance sometimes with great goaltending, but they have no chance with average goaltending. And he's been very good since then.
And to follow up on that, Ken, and that leads me to my next subject, and Dean touched on it perfectly. They didn't even get average goaltending for Marcus Högberg. Where do you go with him right now? He I think his save percentage is .837.
Yeah.
I think his goals against average is 4.88 as we speak today. Could you possibly put him back in the net again anytime soon?
I'm looking at this road trip, the 5 games, and do you run the table with Matt Murray? Like, at what point? There's good questions, because at what point you're not making the playoffs, and this is years about the development, no question. You want to run Matt Murray to keep you in games, or do you spot somebody else in there? And I mean we did talk about different things they're doing with the team. You brought up you flip-flopped Gustafsson and Decord, probably to give Decord some time to play in Belleville, which is getting their season underway, which is smart. He's going to run a string of games. After this 5-game road trip, do you flip it and then you bring Decord up to take Högberg's spot? And how much do you get Högberg in a game again on that road trip? Do you get one more chance? I find it that's going to be interesting, because Högberg's confidence is shot, and the kind of goals. It's one thing to let in, great plays in front of you, but I don't know about the second goal, but certainly the first one last night was right through his legs. Not a it's a Darnell Nurse is a good player and everything, but that's a save you have to make. And then the third one with Tyson Barrie, he's sliding way to the left, and that's not the first time we've seen that. I'm not going to pretend to be a technical expert on goaltending, but he's sliding his way out of the net and leaving half the net, and we've seen that before, right, Dean?
Yeah, for sure. Getting back to Bruce's point, what do? You do the same thing you do with any young player. You work on them, you get them in practice, you try and help them with video, you try to help them with confidence, and you put them back out there. You're never going to fix those things by never playing again. And when you look at Ottawa's schedule and you try to find gaps where you say, well, here's a good spot to put them in because it might be a weaker opponent. There aren't any weaker opponents. For Ottawa, there's no such thing as an easier game. So I'm not sure it really matters when you put them back in the net, but you have to put them back in the net. I think that down the road, if another couple of games with performances like that, then as an organization, you have to seriously consider, do you make a move with somebody like Joey Decord to bring him up to put him in there, because you're just not getting the performance you want and need from Högberg. But in the immediate future, when people say, what do you do with him? I go back to what I said before. You do what you do with every young player in every position. You get a hold of him in practice, you get him some individual coaching, you get him some video, you work on his confidence, and you put him back in there. That's what you do.
3 goals from defenseman with the Oilers on Tuesday night in Ottawa, and they did shut down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. One of the things, though, guys, is I think they are playing better defensively in front of their goaltenders. And a guy who was an unknown in North America, certainly to us, was Artyom Zub. And Artyom Zub has played in the last 5 or 6 games, Kenny, and I think he's stabilized things a little bit back there, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, who knew anything about him? Somebody could say he's a great player in the KHL, and he showed strides, he's a late developer, and that's great. And we hear about these players all the time, but until they come over and show what they can do in a game, you really have no idea. Sometimes they're flops, and sometimes they're success stories. And so far, Zub, like you say, I think he's been a bit. He's looked poised to me. He's in all situations. In his own end, he makes a smart play. In the offensive zone, he makes the smart play. He doesn't appear to be out of position. He's picked up a few points here along the way, but I don't think it's necessarily about that. He moves the puck. Somebody made a comparison, I don't know where I heard it, to Dylan DeMello, and I thought that was not a bad comparison because there's nothing outstanding, fantastic that jumps off the page or off the TV screen when you see him. But I think he just makes the smart, simple plays, and that really has helped stabilize things. Brandstrom played a game in there. I thought he looked okay moving the puck. Wolanin moving the puck helps, and they're just spending less time in their own zone, which should help the goalies if the goalies are playing okay.
Dean, I think one of the things about defensemen is when you don't notice them, and I think that's one of the best things you can say about Artyom Zub.
Yeah, he's a gamer. He's a guy that makes smart plays. He makes some clever plays, but does it in kind of obscurity. He's not a big flashy guy, never going to generate a lot of offense. And I think one of the other reasons that we don't know much about him isn't just because he played in the KHL, is because you can't talk to him about himself. He can't speak English. So it's very hard to, get the Zub story out there and talk to him about his life and his career because he doesn't speak the language. So I think he's obviously speaking through his play, and that's the best we're going to get for a while. I think that he's a guy that probably surprised a lot of people because because none of us knew anything about him personally or professionally. I think we all just kind of dismissed him as a guy that was just coming in, and he's been more than just a guy.
Dean, been an awful lot of focus on the young players, and we've certainly seen Drake Batherson struggle. I would hazard to say that Tim Stützle in the last 3 or 4 games has evened out a little bit here. Josh Norris probably is. I don't know if the young players haven't been through this kind of rigor and they're a little bit tired. Where do you kind of see those guys as being at right now? And then Kenny, we'll get your thoughts.
I still see them, Bruce, as being guys who are just trying to put one foot in front of the other at the NHL game. Anytime any young player jumps into the NHL, they're jumping into the deep end. No matter how good they were in junior, no matter where they got drafted, no matter how much they're getting paid. Young guys, in the case of Stützle, a teenager, when you jump into the NHL, you're in the deep end. And not every stroke is a beautiful stroke when you're trying to swim to shore, I think when I look at this team, it's not, to me anyway, it's not so much the young players, that are struggling offensively, especially. It's the old players that aren't, pulling the load they were supposed to pull. For me, I use the Austin Watson measure. He's a guy who was brought in to be a fourth line right winger, a grinder, an energy guy, a guy who will fight if he has to, that kind of a guy. And when you're where Ottawa is right now, and you've got guys like White and Paul and Norris and Paquette and Galchenyuk and Stepan and Brown and Batherson and Anisimov, all with fewer goals than Austin Watson, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, we can dance all we want about a bunch of other, small little details. Bottom line is good for Austin Watson to do his job. But when he's got more goals against that many guys who play so much more with more offensive players, and he's got more goals, that's their problem, not his.
I think it goes back to, the start of the year. You wanted those veteran guys, Dean, to take the kids, to grow and lead the kids a little bit. And it's hard to do that when they're not producing at the level, not a great level, but even a moderate level. And then I think I agree with you on the kids. There seem to be up and down a little bit, right? There's a good game. Stützle has a great game, come back down to earth a little bit. Norris, Tkachuk, I think, started the year pretty well, and then they've kind of bumpy ride since. Batherson hasn't really found his game other than on the power play sometimes. And I agree that it was supposed to be the veterans that were kind of going to help these guys through that phase. And, rather than that choppy stock market kind of thing for young players, you have the steady growth of the veterans to lead them. And that's been tough because I think it's not necessarily an energy level for the kids. I think they're playing they're giving what they can. It's just not every night it's going to happen for them. And it magnifies it, I guess, like you say, Dean, when the veterans aren't chipping in as much as they probably should at this point.
And as we wrap up here, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the All-Canadian North Division and the fact that, the Senators saw Draisaitl and McDavid on Tuesday night. Thursday night, it's Wheeler, Scheifele, and Pierre-Luc Dubois making, with the Winnipeg Jets. Next week it's Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews and John Tavares. Dean, have you just two things here? Have you enjoyed the Canadian division? And B, how do you like the 2 and 3 game series?
Do like the Northern Division because obviously it's it's teams that everybody knows, that we see a lot, and they've got a lot of great players. Right now this Northern Division, Canadian division, happens to be loaded with a lot of great players. So I think personally it's the best division in the game right now, number one. Number two, I don't mind the multiple games in a row because it does lead to some emotional hockey because guys get ticked off with each other. And I like that. I've always said that hate is good for hockey. And these games where they play each other 2-3 times in a row, people tend to hate each other. And, I enjoy that kind of hockey. And so I think it's been very good. And probably one of the other reasons why it's been very good is that there have been no interruptions. The Northern Division has not had any shutdowns because of COVID. So you can count on games, they're going to happen.
Kenny, one of the things, and this will be the last thought here, is one of the things I think I've noticed is I'm not watching many American games. And I found the Canadian division games so intriguing that I haven't seen a whole lot of Boston or Tampa or any of those teams south of the border.
Well, yeah, it's even as simple as looking at NHL.com this morning and looking at stats. Like, oh, that's happening, and that's happening. Like you think you know what's going on, and then you're looking, you go, oh, I didn't see that. There are stats, and certain players are having good year starts or whatever. But I love this North Division. Think of this: Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. We've just seen him 4 times in the last 10 days. Normally, you take 2 seasons to see those guys 4 times. And I'm not saying that that's the best team it's not the best team in the North, but they might be the best players. So I'm really enjoying it. And just before I finish up here, the emotion, the 2 fights at the start of that game a couple games ago with Edmonton, that's the hate and the intensity. I love it. I think it's
the only thing wrong, guys, is that they can't sell tickets, but hopefully down the road they will. That's the Post Media Senators panel for Post Media in Ottawa with Bruce Garrioch and Ken Warren. We'd like to thank Dean Brown of TSN 1200 for joining us. We'll see you next week.